Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate that a lot. I also love it when people leave comments, so if you have a question about the video, if you want to suggest some improvements, if you have an idea for a video or you want to share how you do things, those are always welcome. And I just love hearing from you, so leave a comment if you want to. So I think today I'm going to do something, I'm going to call it a dome setting, because I've never done anything quite like this before, and I was thinking about how else could you use a dapped piece of sheet, and I thought, well, we could kind of set up a stone really high that way and put some prongs on top of it. So I picked out a pretty blue topaz that I have, that's about a 10 by 12. I'm going to make a series of domes out of 18 gauge sheet, and we're going to mount the stone on top of one of those and make a pendant out of it. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I think it'll be kind of cool and sort of modern and look like bubbles maybe, but we'll see. So we'll give it a try. Before we do that, I need to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I think they are marvelous. They've created this lovely community over there with a great deal of nice people helping each other out, and I really love that. So thanks for that. Thanks for your financial support as well. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 20,100, so I think we're getting close to 20,200, which is amazing. Thank you for that. I appreciate the really nice comments that you leave. It's nice when people tell me that they've gotten something useful out of the video that they're watching, or if they tell me that it's helped them to get out of a creative slump or whatever. Those things are really nice to hear, so thanks for that. As a teacher, I appreciate that. I also appreciate the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. Those things help with the cost of materials, which have skyrocketed as of late. So thank you for that as well. All right, well, let's get working on this dome setting. And this is one of my design idea sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. They have this nice dot matrix in the background that acts as kind of a graph paper, but it's not as obtrusive as graph paper, so it helps me to draw pictures better when I'm sketching up ideas. This particular version has a gauge conversion chart, since a lot of people don't use wire gauge around the world. This is American wire gauge to inches to millimeters, so I find it pretty useful. I try to do things in millimeters anymore, but there's a number of different ones. There's even a new one that we just put up that has information about saw blade sizes and how to choose the right saw blade size for what you're cutting on the back. So there's a lot of different things over there on the backs of these notebooks. You'll have to check it out in the merch store. Here's what I got going today. Alright. So this is a 10 by 12 millimeter blue topaz. It's kind of a pale one. It's not, I wouldn't even call it Swiss. I just call it kind of a light blue topaz. But it's pretty nonetheless, and it's a good size. It's kind of deep. And so having a dome piece that this is going to be set into is going to give it some space for the pavilion to sit as well. This is just kind of a rough sketch. The two parts, the bail up here, I've already made because I'm doing a sandwich bail, and I put a little dome on the top to mirror the rest of the domes that are going to be here. And I'll show you that when we get to that stage. If you're interested in learning how to do sandwich bails, I have a video about that right there. It's a kind of a useful sort of bail that you can change up for what you need, which is what I did on this one. I'm going to cut some discs out of 18 gauge sheet. I cut one here. I'm kind of estimating how big it needs to be in order to create that. Most of the sources I find, one of my patrons told me the formula, and I can't find where I wrote it down. But there's a way to calculate how big of a half sphere you'll get based on the piece of sheet. And one of the sources I saw said about 28% larger, but I'm probably not going to make it a complete half sphere. It's just going to be a dome. And so I went with something slightly smaller than 28% larger. It would have been 37 millimeters, I think, based on this drawing. And so I went a little bit smaller at 30 millimeters. So we'll see how that works. These other ones will be smaller discs made out of 18 as well that I'm going to punch out with my disc cutter. I just have kind of a cheap disc cutter here that's not the greatest, but it'll work. So we'll cut out a few various sizes, and I'll piece them together down here into some kind of pleasing pattern, not necessarily symmetrical, but sort of grape clustery or bubbly, and we'll make those into domes as well, and we'll solder them all together. I will, towards the end, I'll add some prongs on top of this after I saw out the right size hole for this. It's going to have to be slightly smaller than that. So, but I think we'll need to dome it before we ever do that. So I think that's going to be our starting place. I went ahead and I marked the center of this disc, or at least pretty close. That way it'll make it easier to know where to cut out that shape to get it centered. So we'll try to do this X on the outside. Hopefully it'll survive all of the pounding I'm going to do on it. But we're gonna do some dapping first, so that'll be our first step. Before we get started, so I don't forget, I use hard silver sheet solder almost exclusively, and that looks like this. I use a liquid flux that I dribble on with a dropper bottle like that. My torch is a Silversmith model. It's their acetylene air torch. It draws in atmospheric air to mix with the gas in the nozzle here, and I use a #1 tip on it. It's hotter than a propane torch, not as hot as an oxyacetylene torch, so it's kind of perfect for silver. And let's see, anything else? I get asked about this bench block a lot. I bought somebody's tools who was a former student when they decided not to do it anymore, and he had a friend make this, had a welder friend who made this for him, so I find it pretty useful. Kind of need to resurface it. It's getting a little beat up, but I use it all the time. We'll be doing some dapping on these dapping blocks. I have a couple of different dapping blocks. I'll probably just start with this one. This one's a little bit nicer one, but we'll start by shaping it a little bit, and then we'll work our way up to a deeper and deeper kind of concave shape. So one of the things I found over the years in dapping stuff, when you go from one of these spots to the next one down and the piece doesn't quite fit in there, if you turn it a little bit like this and you start shaping it on the edges more before you fit it all the way in there, work your way around like that, it'll kind of squeeze that top in so you can get it right in there, and then you can really kind of get it in there better. You're starting to get kind of more of a shape like we want. I'm going to go ahead and anneal this, since it's probably getting pretty work hard because we're stretching it. If you're new to this, annealing is to soften the metal back up. When you pound on silver, just like other metals, or if you twist it or bend it or generally work it in any way, it changes the structure internally, and it becomes harder and more brittle. And so if we want to continue to shape it, we have to periodically soften it back up. And this is how you do it. So you get it to kind of that dull reddish color like that. And then we'll let it cool down almost all the way, and then we'll quench it the last little bit. And that should soften it up a little bit for us. Starting to get kind of in the size range where I was thinking. I may do it slightly bigger just because I don't know if I can get this quite that small without mangling it. Let's see if I can get it any better. Just a little more, maybe. I think I'm going to call that good. So I'm just going to clean that up. I wanted to remind people, if they get tired of the ads on YouTube here, you can sign up for my Tier 1 level on my Patreon and get all of my content without any ads. So there is that kind of a perk. There's also multiple tiers with different levels of privileges and things like that. I do some exclusive Patreon videos for the different tiers, and but the first level is just basically to get the service to support me a little bit financially and get the videos without any kind of ads. So I think it might be worth looking into if you're interested. I feel like my little X that I subscribed on here is not going to be here anymore after all that pounding. Okay, I'm going to get this cleaned up and see if I can find the center point again. Okay, I found what I thought would be the best center point there, and I took the stone and I drew a little oval that's about the size of the stone, and then I drew a little oval inside of that that's slightly inside of that edge, because I want it to be not so big that the stone will follow through there, but big enough to where it'll let a lot of light through. I probably don't have to have this perfect because I can use my Dremel with some diamond burrs. It should be pretty close. Supposing I can get that kind of centered over that. That's not bad. So our next step is just going to be to cut that out. So I drilled a hole in it and I ran this saw blade through it. It's a number 00. Sawing is not my strongest suit, but I'm getting a little better at it as I go. Okay, that's pretty crudely cut, but I can use one of these diamond burrs like this to kind of just smooth that out. So I'm going to do that. I'm not going to make you watch me do that, but I'm just going to put it in my rotary tool and do that. Okay, so I have that kind of cleaned up. I have a nice, neat kind of oval hole there. You can see it's quite a bit bigger than what I saw it. I gradually expanded it. Is it perfectly in the center? Probably not. But it's about that deep when I set the stone in there. So then I can have some prongs sticking up off of that dome, which will add towards the end. But I like the way that looks, even if I think it's close enough to where only I would probably notice. But we need to make some other balls now, or domes, so I'm going to cut out a few pieces of 18, and I have to do this on the floor because I don't have a good stable solid bench here. I just have a kind of table, and my workbench is an old counter that if I hit too hard on it, it vibrates and everything falls off. So I'll make maybe one of these. Right there. That'll probably end up being about that size, maybe. We'll do our best. So I'm going to make like 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, and 1 of these. So 2 of all of the small ones, 1 of the big ones here. So I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a biggish one, and then a couple of smaller ones, couple smaller ones, couple smaller ones, and then the smallest ones I could get based on the pins I still have. And these are thick and pretty small, so I'm not even sure I'll be able to adapt these. We'll see. I'll put them in a little one and try. It'll be an interesting experiment. Mm-hmm. Mm. Well, I think I can round that one down with the file a little bit. I don't think I can do these smallish ones. I may just have to use some silver balls that I make on the dapping block or on the charcoal block to do those little tiny ones, but I'll dome these other ones, so I'll be right back after I do that. Okay, so I made some progress. I got some little domes here. One thing I did, my wife pointed out, and this was a good point, that this was significantly taller than these ones, and so it may be hard to, these ones may get lost in the massiveness of this one. And so I actually cut it off with a saw. I took about 2 or 3 millimeters off, and then just filed it flat again. So I think that'll be less overwhelming. She suggested that I put tubes on the bottom of these to raise them to different levels. I think that might be cool too. I don't know if I'm going to do that on this one, but maybe in a future project. So she does have good advice though, so you tell me in the comments whether you think I should have gone with her advice or not. But here's that bail. If I don't remember if I showed you or not, but it's just got a little pin on this side. It's got a kind of a rounded part on this side, and I did a dome on the top. And I did a sealed half sphere basically. And to do that, I drilled a hole into the bottom of the sheet that I was soldering to this little rounded dome so as not to trap any gases in there. And then I added the rest of this. So, but we'll put a piece of 16 gauge round probably right there, but I think let's solder these together. I ended up not using all of the spheres here. Something kind of like that. I think that'll look kind of funky and maybe mid-century modern or something. I'm not sure, but it kind of looks that way to me. You can tell me that too. What period do you think this looks like the jewelry from? Sometimes I don't set out to make something from a particular period, but then I end up doing it anyway by accident. Okay, so let's cut a little bit of solder. So I'm going to do what's called pick soldering, where I pick up stuff on my soldering pick. I pick up solder on the end of my soldering pick by melting it into a little ball. Heat this piece up to the soldering temperature and touch it right where it goes. But before we do that, we need to flux it. So let me move my notebook out of the way so I don't catch that on fire. That's my new one that hasn't been caught on fire yet. So Maybe tonight is the night to break it in. Hopefully not. This is probably not a beginner project, but one of the things you need to keep in mind when you're soldering things together are the different masses involved. And this big one has a lot of mass and all these other ones don't. So you have to heat them accordingly because it takes bigger pieces to get up to the soldering temperature than those smaller pieces. So ideally you want them to flow at just about the same time, you know? But does that always happen? Not always. Oopsie. I think I kind of missed that one. Still didn't get it. With that one. There we go. Oops. Yeah. That looks pretty good. Let's cool it off and take a peek. So we need to solder on two last things. We need to put some prongs on the top of this, and I need to put a little ring up top there. So I need to find some 16 gauge round. I'm going to go with this size. And then we'll see. So I honestly don't want a full circle. So let's cut it off kind of be like 3/4. So you can kind of see that. Oh, I got the angles too steep. I think that's going to be kind of pretty. This is kind of an experiment. I was kind of thinking about doming stuff and what I hadn't tried before. So it's always fun when something turns out kind of cool. Of course, knowing me, I still have the potential for messing things up. You could probably do this with a bezel on top of that too, as long as you got it positioned right. That's pretty good, I think, about like that. So on this one, I'm going to solder it just on one side so that we can slide this over later. And then I'm going to solder on the prongs. So we'll need to get that soldered on. And then I'll figure out where I want the prongs. That's about right. Okay, so I'm just going to solder those together. said, I was just soldering the one side. For the prongs, I'm going to create kind of a little X. And solder the X together so it goes like that and like that. And then we'll make a little kind of like a little crouched bug sitting on top of here, and we'll solder it on. And then we'll have our prongs. So I guess we should kind of figure out where we want the prongs first. Put one right about there. I think it was right at the end of each of those, kind of, I think. Okay, so let's make our little X piece. Just going to file the ends of both of these. And then spend a moment getting them straight. I'm going to file these with a half round file at a bit of an angle. Should make it easy to solder those together like that. I put a little tiny divot with a ball burr where I wanted those to end up, just to try that out. I've never really done that because I think it might make it easier to get these to sit where I want them to sit. But I also soldered this together, and I've been playing with the angles, and then I marked where they need to go. I got them pretty lined up like that, and then I marked with a marker where I need to bend them down like that. So that'll be my next step. And we'll have to cut them off all to the same length. And we'll play with the angles until we get them to sit right in the right spot. So these are far longer than I need, so I'm going to cut them off about right there. So I can see I need to bend them all inwards just slightly, but they're actually pretty close to where I want them to be. I think that's close enough. Let's solder those on. You could use paste solder here if you want to. See if I can do it with just regular solder. Soldering something pretty small to something big, so most of the heat's going to go in the bottom piece. May have to do the third one, or the fourth one I should say. This one over here I don't think is touching. So let's cool it off, and then I'll get that touching and we'll get that one soldered as well. Let's put the bail on and let this thing pickle for a while. I think I'm going to use a little bit of easy paste on this last one, just because I don't want to screw anything up and have to start over. Check our solder joints, make sure nothing is going to come loose. It's all look pretty good. I usually leave these on during the initial polishing stage in order to protect the prongs so they don't get caught on the wheel and yanked off. So I'll be back. I was having a little problem with the setting, so I went ahead and set it off camera and then shaped the prongs a little bit. I'm not super pleased with the way it's sitting in here. It's a little bit crooked, but overall the piece is, I think it's very pretty. So it really catches a lot of light in that stone. And so I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. If you want to see how to actually do the prongs on a prong setting, I'll put a link up there to a video. And okay, I'll get some better pictures. Well, that was the dome setting, or the bubble pendant, or whatever you want to call it. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And take a moment and peruse my main channel page on YouTube here. I have 460 plus videos now, so there's a ton of content. I've been doing 3 videos per week for over 3 years now, and I've tried to amass a huge collection of project ideas as well as some technique videos and some advice videos. So I think you'll almost certainly find something useful over there if you check out a few more, and I'd absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel. The other thing is, don't forget to check the video description down below. There's links to those design idea sketchbooks, which I find invaluable anymore. And like I said, there's a new one available. Also, there's a link to my newest ebook, which is 2024's video guide. I have extra information about each of the tutorials I did during 2024. There's over 170 videos. It's a great way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips. Each of the projects has additional information about it, including materials lists, difficulty rating, extra information about the video itself and the project, whether I liked it, whether I found difficulties doing it, what did I learn from it, all of that kind of stuff is in there. So that's not only a great resource, it's a great way to support my channel by buying that. So thanks for that in advance. I'd also love it if you checked out the link to Patreon there. There's a great community over there of welcoming people, and they have a lot of knowledge and are super friendly. So if you want to support my channel in that way, as well as maybe support yourself, that's a great way to go. So check it out. Make sure to come back and visit again. Take care. Happy silversmithing.